Oh, what a good transition on that.
Right.
Phil slid right in. He's like, and I'm going to go away. My son, you have kids, right?
Yep.
Yeah. How many kids do you have?
I have 2.
2 kids? Oh, ages.
9 and 12.
9 and 12. Those are fun ages. I only know by the 9. My daughter's 10. That's been fun. The 12-year-old. How's that?
Well, so my 12-year-old is almost as big as I am.
Be careful. They may be a fan of the show.
He's almost as big as I am, and he's into the Fortnite, video games, Call of Duty. He's a 12-year-old. He just went and requisitioned one of my extra monitors so we could have 2 monitors. So now he's living the high life. Oh yeah. I told him he had to connect it and find a cable and the mess of cables I have. So
right, you got to give him the responsibility.
Yeah, got a free monitor. I worked years to get a second monitor.
Right. Yeah, it's hard, and I
get it.
I remember working at places where like some people had 2 monitors and like some people had 1, and I'm like, man, how do I get that second? I could be so much more productive.
I have 3 now. I'm living the high life.
So do I. Yeah, I got 3 right now. That's right, and one of them is portrait mode for the document.
Oh, see, I want a big one across the top here.
Right.
Not necessarily.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't get it. I don't think I could do portrait mode, but a long horizontal one would be something I could have stuff that refreshes and I can just watch it.
I just want a long portrait one just right in front of me. I can stand up. No, I remember having to work hard for that. You know what blew me away? It's when I was wanting to, it's about maybe right in the beginning of COVID, right? So people are home. It's like, oh, got to figure out stuff to do. And I was like, I've always wanted one of those huge freaking monitors, just really curved. It's a big, nice monitor. And I was like, it can't be that much. It can't be that much because look at, I can get like a 60-inch LG,
you can get a 60-inch for $500. $500, huge, giant LCD TV that is
obnoxious size, you know, for like, easy. That'd be like my bedroom TV. Of course, this is going to be $3,000, $2,000. Yep. I'm like, what? But I guess it's that refresh.
It's the refresh rate and the pixel density is what really comes into play with these fancy monitors. But yeah, you can get one for like $500-$600 now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Good. But because that's when they started to catch on. I finally, for the first time, they're not the exact same because the model was discontinued between when I got it, but I have 3 of the exact same, almost same model of monitor.
Nice.
I used to have like an Asus 21-inch and then an Acer 20-inch, and that was my setup. Now
all non-matching. All
non. Like none of them were the same.
That's like going down to basketball courts wearing like an Adidas top and Nike shoes. Like, what are you doing?
Exactly. But so now they're all LGs and they're all 27-inch. So nice. I have only one of them is really different, and that's the old one that I wasn't going to spend another $300 to replace. So
right. I'm rocking my 2 Samsungs that honestly I got from my mom, which is great. She got a promotion. They gave her a bunch of other stuff, and she was like, well, what about all these monitors? She has like 4 monitors, and they were like, we already marked them out. You can have them. It's like, okay. You want some monitors? Bring those over here.
How many monitors? Like a coworker of mine has 6 at his home and at work.
So it's got
he's got 3 and 3.
Oh my goodness. What would you do with all that?
He uses them all.
Is he a day trader?
No, he wears a lot of hats, don't get me wrong. But like at some point there was a diminishing return of adding a monitor.
When like this takes more time than just clicking over, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you could keyboard shortcut moving your windows around at this point. You should have
yeah. No, trust me, this is so much more productive.
Yeah, right?
This is great. Awesome.
This episode is presented by OIT VoIP. Enhance your client's communication abilities with our VoIP solution, featuring integrated billing, on-demand training, and live US support. Collaborate seamlessly with Microsoft Teams integration and put your entire phone system in your pocket with Mobile X. Improve your offerings and increase profitability with reliable service, for 1/10 of the average MSP acquisition cost. To learn more, visit oit.co or dial 844-CALL-OIT.
Senor Spooner, I'm going to go ahead and introduce us if you don't mind. Hello, everyone out there in computer land. My name is Aaron Bolton. This is 38 at 38, where we discuss ridiculous job stories. We all have them, and if you've never talked about yours, start talking about them. You'll find that other people have ridiculous job stories too, and they are funny. Maybe not when they happen. A lot of them aren't too funny. They're kind of stressful, but presently they are hilarious. And today I have Mr. Spooner with me. Go ahead and say hi. I introduced you, but dig into yourself. Let's really break it down.
Oh God. My name is Kyle Spooner. I am a director of operations for a MSP out of Baltimore. I'm a full-time remote employee. I also happen to be vice president of MSPGeek, a managed services community of over 10,000 members at this point. And that's what I do. I do some of this stuff as well. I do some podcasting and some talks and educational content. We have a YouTube channel. It's a thing.
Right. Now, I do want to say a couple things. Number one, congratulations on MSP GeekCon. That was 2 months ago. That's your first year, right?
First year.
And I was not there, but I hope to be there next year. But I've heard nothing but great things, like really awesome things. So, and like more people than you were expecting. And like, it surpassed expectations. So
easily. And that's the feedback we've gotten from everyone, is that it was an amazing event. One of the best things we heard was, this does not feel like a year one thing. It feels like you've been doing this for multiple years, which,
dude, that's
big
solid.
Shout out. Yeah, dude, shout out to the huge amount of help from a volunteer team who have done events before. We took a lot of advice from them, and they were hugely helpful in making sure that we had everything, proper and good for what we were trying to do.
Right.
So
yeah, it was great. And the second one, talking about podcast, when you're releasing that podcast, a spoonful of advice.
I have a website. I haven't done anything with it because every time I try to sit down and write something, I'm just like, no one wants to hear my thoughts. And it's like, it
I'm telling you, man, I wouldn't be pushing it so hard. I think it'd be great because it'd be your advice with comedy. It'd be awesome.
At some point when I carve out some time, I do want to start writing, just to build my abilities in it. It's right. It's a difficult thing, when in high school, you're like, God, writing sucks. It's horrible. Right. But you realize how important it is when you have to like email other people and do text communication. Right. And it's like, you got to put the proper nouns and adjectives and use sentence structure.
Right. I try not to be a Nazi, period.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And I think we all should.
It's a good one. It took me a second because I knew my brain put the word where it was supposed to be that you were missing, and I was like, "Oh, wait a second."
Thank goodness I didn't say "but" because it would just clip right there. I tried to not to be a Nazi, but no. Yeah. No, grammar Nazi, but it's difficult. It's because like I get caught. I like writing. I really enjoy writing. But when I was in high school, again, it was like, if I have to write for a purpose or like write because somebody else is asking me to write, like we need you. It's just I like the creative freedom with writing. I really love it. So with that, if I see reading articles nowadays. What are they talking about? Like, can you buy a bag of punctuation? Like, just it's just not I don't know. The grammar's all off. I've seen easily people, in articles on LinkedIn, people using TO instead of TOO. I mean, just like little things. Just proofread it.
Yeah,
I guess I am a Nazi, a grammar Nazi.
Are you an Oxford comma fan?
I like the Oxford comma.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think we talked about this. I think it might have. Why not? Is this too much trouble? I don't get it.
It's fun because I have this of a friendly banter with some friends, across the pond, who are way better educated than some of us here, me especially. And it's just like, we have these like things, and I'm like, but I put an Oxford comma in there. Like, I don't care about an Oxford comma. You destroyed the whole sentence. And I'm like, but there was a comma that was supposed to be it. Yeah.
A comma. And maybe you should just read better.
Yeah. Make your brain fix it in post. Okay.
Yeah. Post-production brain work. Awesome. So let's get into it. All right. I love doing these recordings because I really, I really enjoy this podcast. I really enjoy it. I'd hope to, right? But I really enjoy hearing all these like ridiculous stories that I get to hear. So Kyle, what is your most ridiculous job story? What would you like to share with us today?
So there's a lot of things I could probably share, but I want to share one that probably scarred me for life.
Okay. Where we need a tissue for this issue?
No. It was the first time I had ever made a critical mistake in the IT industry. A little bit of background. An MSP was my first IT job, and I got it as an intern when I was like 26 years old. I was previously in sales and a store manager in retail.
Right.
So I've always just had a passion for IT. So I had worked my way up in a span of 3 months into a level 1 technician role in the help desk. So bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, going ham.
First tech
taking
job.
Tickets, yeah.
And this is what you want to do.
Doing learning, setting up home labs, learning all the cool stuff. Just a sponge, getting up all the knowledge of the IT space. Learn about ESXi, Hyper-V, which was probably not around yet at that time. Learning how to do servers and AD management, all that great stuff. So we get a client call in with a critical server down. It was a manufacturing company who manufactured food goods for one of their stores. And they had a 2-server setup. They had 2 ESX servers, and they had a NetApp that was their storage.
Gesundheit.
Yeah. So they called in and said their server was down. Their critical terminal server, because everyone had terminal servers back in the day. And so I knew the server itself was down, not the terminal server. But I knew that I could connect the storage to the other terminal server.
Okay.
Because I had sponged all the knowledge up. So I did that. Connected it up, went through all the prompts, read everything. Everything was good. Hit accept, yes. Connect the storage, boot up the terminal server, and I'm in.
Right.
We're live. I've saved the day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling good.
Right.
And I start
fireworks going off.
Exactly. I start poking around, making sure everything's good, and I restart the server just to make sure, and it comes back up in blue screens. I'm like,
oh, wait, turn down the fanfare, guys.
Yeah. Lower the fireworks, please.
Please.
And then I go to try to turn it on, and nothing happens. It's just a black screen. No boot drive.
Did you already tell everyone fixed it?
No.
Oh, thank goodness.
I'd not got that far. I was going to do that after I rebooted it. I was installing something or making sure the drivers updated or making sure everything was working properly, and I was going to reboot it just one good time.
And so at this point, your client is down for the count?
They're maybe 20 minutes at this point.
Okay.
Connecting the LUN to the server is not that long of a process. And again, I'm a level 1 technician, and I've done this stuff before, mostly.
Right.
So I go to boot the server, nothing, it's gone. The entire server is gone. There is nothing there. It is empty drive space. So now remember, I booted the server. I was in it, and now it's gone.
Right. So you can't even say it was like that when I got here.
Exactly. So I turned to my team lead and I'm like, hey, WTF. The server was here. I booted into it. I restarted it. It blue screened, and now it's gone. In its boot up process, it blue screened, and now it's gone. The CEO comes over, and they're down for an hour. I'm having to rebuild the terminal server from scratch and backup. And I set up everything. I installed the new OS. I'm in the terminal server. I'm reconfiguring everything, software backups, all of it. the CEO comes over and he's screaming and yelling because a tier 1 technician is working on a critical issue.
Right.
So evidently,
but did he know it was you, that you were the tier 1 technician?
Yes.
Okay. So he was like, yeah, still.
he said that we weren't to inform the client what had happened. But it turns out the way you connect a NetApp 1 to an ESX server of that version has to be very specific. The way I did it, the ESX server or the NetApp, I forget exactly which one, overwrites the data that's there and zeroes it out as if it's a fresh creation. So I spent 14 hours.
Oh my goodness.
Because it happened in the morning. So I spent 14 hours calling the client once every hour, going through and, giving them updates. Hey, it's gone. I'm rebuilding it. I'm sorry. Nothing I can do.
You had to make that phone call?
I did. Yes. Well, I deleted it. I felt like I should be the one. I didn't say what had happened. I made the mistake, but I felt I should be the one because I wasn't allowed to. But I said, hey, I'm working on it. I'm going to get you up by tomorrow.
Right.
So I spent all day. I was up to like 7, 8 o'clock at night at the office, rebuilding the terminal server and making sure they could get back in tomorrow to start working. But yeah, the CEO come over and screamed and yelled and yelled at the team lead for letting me work on it and yelled at me for screwing everything up. Yeah. So yeah, that's the first time I had ever panicked in a situation after I had, the thing happened. Like, there's what I could do at that point. But it was the first time I would probably think I was, up to lose my job.
Yeah.
That was at that was my fear level at that point.
Yeah. And how old were you?
27, I would say. 27 at the time. Dude,
so your frontal lobe, all that judgment, that just formed a couple years before. I mean, I think so. This is what I like to relate or think back to all these stories, especially like when we're younger, right? So I remember this like when I was in 10th grade. Now it's funny, I just told this story to my nieces yesterday, but I was going through a lot of stress, just a lot of stress in my life. And I said, I'm always going to remember like how stressed I am as a kid. I know my stresses don't compare to like my parents' stresses, but still it's stressful for me. So I realized that if you're a kid, if you're younger and you're going through a bunch of stress, chances are that's the most stress you've ever gone through in your life. Mm-hmm. And that is just as valid as an adult going through stress. And that's the most. So I think back at 27 years old, that's still fairly young. And that's a lot of stress all on you. You're going to lose your job. I mean, you've got an adult screaming at you. 27. It's an adult still, like an older person screaming at you.
50-year-old gentleman. Yeah.
50-year-old gentleman. Your dad is riding you right now.
Basically. And
you're like this small. Oh man, dude. And
I've been in high pressure situations before. I ran a $3 million retail store by myself, basically for several months. I ran managed staff. I've done most of the things that I continue to want to do and do now. I'm, with MSPGeek and everything with training and leadership. But at just that point, all of that goes away and you're just like, you have to take it because you're the one who technically made the mistake, even though it happened. I guess it's your fault. There's no changing it.
Right. It's not like you meant to.
It's like I didn't purposely delete that terminal. I didn't want to spend 14 hours rebuild the terminal server for a client who was already annoying as it was.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, dude. But you made it out on the other end. And you know what? I bet you never did that again.
I have never deleted a terminal server ever again.
See? How often? So so those are like core memories. I like those core memories. And I had a convo with my sister last night about this, about like, do you ever have core memories that you just kind of go back throughout the years? Like, oh yeah, remember that. Is that one of those things where something will trigger at work and you'll be like, just like that glimpse of that memory will come back to you?
That one, not so much anymore. I don't do a whole lot of like tickets like that, like technical tickets anymore. So it's that specific thing doesn't come into play, but it does if I'm working on something that has the potential to have like data loss or unintended consequences. I always double check and triple check what I'm going to do and test if I can before I make that change.
Harkens back. Well, make that change. That's like, That's the end of a Michael Jackson song, isn't it? Make that change.
I don't know. I'm not a huge Michael Jackson fan.
We'll look it up, guys.
Just the hits.
We'll get producer
Add
Phil.
Post.
Please get on
post. Put a thing on the bottom.
Yeah, the
yes
video.
or no.
Yes, let's do this. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyle. I'm going to hear the quote that you've chosen for me in just a moment, but we're going to take a little break for some advertisements. Yay!
Are you engrossed by the intriguing world of AI? Do you find yourself relying more on ChatGPT every day? Are you fascinated by creating visuals with Midjourney or Stable Diffusion? Or could it be you're contemplating the deep-seated implications AI has for your professional field? If you're struggling to keep abreast of all the AI developments, don't worry. I'm Phil Buck, the host of AI Roundup, a weekly digest of all things AI. Make sure to check in every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern for a concise roundup of the most captivating AI news right here on the MSP Media Network.
And we're back. And producer Phil let us know that the song is Man in the Mirror. And it was great. And then he jumped on the call and he was showing us his cosplay. He was in cosplay, full cosplay. He was singing.
I'm not gonna lie, that was very impressive.
It was
very impressive
and a little offensive. No, I'll let anyone decide why that would be offensive.
He would have a glove on the wrong hand.
On the wrong hand. Not today. Not today. No. Awesome. All right. So here's the other part of this podcast that I love so much that I get to share with you a ridiculous story or some ridiculous stories about one of my 38 jobs. And again, I feel like I should preface this: the 38 jobs, if you follow this series or follow this podcast, it really is about like hustle. Like many times I've had 3 jobs at one time, or not many times, a couple times, many times I've had 2 jobs at one time, and just trying to jump up. And it could be just, hey, a better situation over here. And but by doing that, I found some pretty fun and weird experiences. So Kyle, go ahead and share that quote. And that quote has something to do with the job that I'm going to talk about. And I'm not sure what quote he's going to pick. Go for it.
So I've selected, it's basically an interest-free loan from the IRS.
Okay. So I was questioning if I should even talk about this one.
Too late. I picked it.
Like I was when I put it on the list originally, every time I'm like, okay, when that comes around, I'm still going to be, but okay. So my mom was dating a guy named Werner Asinger, and he's Austrian. And I was 17, and I wasn't. Maybe I was just goofy with him. So, I mean, he spelt his name. His last name was spelled Asanger. So how can I not? How can I?
I'm with you. You're a 17-year-old. I'd do it now.
So, and, Werner Asanger. So why not? So and it was funny. This was my first. Putting my first toe step, into the world of IT. And he ran out of his house a company that he just resold networking equipment, like I remember 3Com 509B60, like all these just cards, all these networking cards. And we're talking 2000, 2001, so all these networking cards, and he'd get shipments in. And I don't even know what sites he was on back in the day, but he'd go on a site and just try to find out if somebody needed what people needed. Then he'd go on a different site and he'd find someone selling it, and he'd just buy it and resell it over, And I thought that was really great, but I always thought, why do those people looking for it? Why don't they just go over to the other site? Why can't we just do that? I didn't understand too much, but the place was called All This Incorporated, which also was kind of weird. And the reason he called it All This was his buddy Woofy, who he owned a networking company called Allnet. That's right, it was Allnet, and it was in Germany, and it was the 3rd largest networking hardware company in all of Europe. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So, and I was like, oh, this is a good guy. Maybe I should reach out to him. Hey, remember some kid that was That's mom was dating a buddy of yours from 20 something years ago.
We know each other. Hook me up.
Yeah, right. Connect LinkedIn. So AllNet. So he decided to do all this because he was also a reseller of AllNet, which he didn't sell any of it. Just a bunch of blue boxes in the garage, stacks of. I'm stacks all the way to the ceiling. I know because I stacked it up there.
Yeah.
So I'm 17 years old, and he liked that I was very outgoing, and we hung out a lot. And he said, "Hey, how about you work for me? How about you work for me?" And I, these little things that I look back, and I'm like, oh, that was a power play. And why were you doing a power play on a kid? So he was like, yeah, I need you to work for me. I said, all right, that sounds great. I was about to graduate high school, and summer was coming up. I'm like, this is perfect. Got it. And he said, this is a time that I had two jobs. A previous job I talked about, I worked at Sears. So I was already working at Sears.
I worked at a Sears outlet.
Oh, good.
That's where I ran the store.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Which one?
It was a Sears outlet here in South Carolina.
South Carolina. Yeah. I don't know why. Even if it was in Tampa, I'd be like, okay. Great. So he said, I need you to come work for me. And no problem. And he said, what was it? He was like, he gave me a date when he wanted me to start working, but it was the last week of school. It was the last week of school. He's like, I need you to start working then. I was like, you want me to start working the last week of school? Like the last week of school? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay. So because I was like, oh,
you're graduating. Who cares? Last week of school.
Done. But again, he couldn't. Not thinking back. Thinking back now, I was like, you couldn't have waited a week. It was
right.
And looking back at him and his behavior, personality, it was a lot of manipulation, and which will be. I don't want to villainize this person at all, but I do want to paint a picture of his business ethics. So I started working for him, and it was very quick off the bat. I don't know if he knew why he was hiring me, or he just wanted me to sell and do stuff. I said, all right, what am I selling? And at this point, I had already been selling. I've talked before. I had my mom as a guest. Like, I've been selling since I was a kid. Like, just selling.
Well, you have to.
Yeah.
You got to go through those those pamphlets you got to take to your neighbors and be like, hey, look, buy some candy.
Yeah.
Buy a trinket.
Yep. Yeah. Something. I definitely did that. But I mean, I'd already worked at like selling. I'd already had like 3 commission jobs at that point, selling in Sears, in Champ Sports, and another one that we haven't talked about yet. When I was in high school, that I was at the same time I was working at Champ Sports. So I mean, I knew how to sell, and it's so true that everyone out there, if you're out there about to hire a sales rep, you want to hire a sales rep, do not hire a sales rep unless you have a good training set up for them, a good onboarding, and letting them know, because they're going to get annoyed and frustrated. If you got a good salesperson, they want to know that they're going to be supported, and they will give you their all, and as long as they can make money. But if you're not hooking them up with the support that they need, they will ride it out until they find something else and buy, right? And I didn't understand that concept. I see it now looking back with myself, because I was like, all right, what am I selling? And he's like, oh, this first, it was the Wolfgang's equipment that I spent like maybe a week just unboxing and stacking up. It was ridiculous. He wanted all of them out of the box, all the individual boxes out of the boxes. It was ridiculous. Guess what happened? It flooded.
Put them back in the boxes.
The garage flooded. And yeah. So that was fun. Why are they on the floor? You told me to put them on the floor. So anyway, that didn't work out, because I was like, all right, who am I selling them to? How do I describe these? What's the script? I mean, just let me know. It wasn't as readily available like internet. It was there obviously, but it wasn't. You can't just pop it in. What is this? And I'm 17. Guide me through this. And he would just sit there and smoke cigarettes all day in front of the other desk that was just butted up to mine, and he's like, you can figure this out. He was so snobby about it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure it out. So what did I do? I spent my time on the internet. I played some games. I kept asking him, hey, do you have anything for me to do? Are you selling? It describes, I mean, it became a very contentious relationship. And
I bet.
while he was dating my mom, because I was like, look, man, he said, how come you're not working? I was like, you haven't given me work. I've been asking you to give me work. Been asking you. Look, if you're going to pay me, I'll be here, but I'd rather not be here and not get paid. If what's going on.
Better things to do than sit in front of computer games.
Yeah, exactly. Seriously. I'm like,
I'm getting paid. Like, I'd rather do something else.
I'd rather do something else and get paid. So, what happened? So I was driving around this busted up. No, I'm not going to say busted up, but it was a busted up Skylark. Like, I think it was like 86 Skylark, Buick Skylark. And again, this is year 2000, 2001. And I needed a car. I had also, outside of selling the all net product line, he then started trying to get me to, that was one thing. He started, actually, this converges. The first day that I was just remembering this. The first day that he says, hey, how about you start selling this? Like doing what he does. I'm like, finally, you're going to teach me what you do? Because he would never be very weird about
it.
Yeah, he wouldn't. I was like, I want to make you money because I know that's how I'll make money, And he said, okay, I'll start showing you. And he showed me, and like in day one, I'd made sales. I'd knocked it out. At the same time, my engine blew on that Skylark. Same, like just like a few days before that, and I needed a car. And I didn't have the money saved up to go get a car. So, I was in this predicament. And when he saw that I was good at it, just a little bit, and he said, hey, you need some money. I know you need some money. I'm like, yeah, for this car. How much would you need for the car? And and we're talking back and forth about discussing numbers. And I'm like, why? And I'm in my back of my mind, I'm like, oh man, is he actually going to be cool and buy me a car?
No one's ever cool.
No one is ever cool, especially no one named Werner A. Assanger. So, that guy's never cool. So he says, well, here's what we'll do. He said, and this is a full-grown man. This is a full-grown man plus 40, over the age of 40. And he says, you can get a loan. Basically, he said, here's what we'll do. He says, I can give you money by paying you the money, and then you can just give me most of it back. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, basically, he said, you have to pay back, but it's basically an interest-free loan from the IRS. I was like, oh, I've never heard of this. And why would I have heard of this? This man
He's 17.
This man is in business. He owned 2 houses. He had a nice car. I'm like, this guy knows what he's doing. I see the transactions coming in and he's making money. So this guy knows what he's doing. He said, here's what we're going to do. He said, if I pay myself money, then I'm taxed at this really high tax bracket. He says, so that means the government gets a lot of that money. But if I pay you the money, whatever amount of money you get paid, you're going to be at a lower tax bracket. And he already did the numbers. Like, he had thought about it, did the numbers, and then presented it to me, like as if it was a spur of the moment. And he said, so I'll pay you. It was like $35,000. I'll write you a check for $35,000. I can't remember. And he said, whatever that tax bracket that I was in, I forget how much it was, whatever I would have paid taxes in it, he said, you keep that money and just give me back all the rest of the money. And I said, so how do I pay this back? He goes, you just pay it back to the IRS. Yeah, they'll send you some forms. And I was like, oh, right. But again, 17 years old, my frontal lobe, where all the reasoning is like, it's not even close to being closed, And I'm like, this makes sense to me. You know what? And I just turned 18 years old. So I'm an adult, I'm going to
make my own decisions.
I'm going to make my own decisions. So I ended up getting the money, and And talking, he said, okay, but listen, this is how I want. Yeah, I'm doing the accent. This is how I want you to bring it to me. You know how when they open up in a movie the briefcase and all the money is there? Does this guy not sound like the
like
villain?
A cartoon villain? It's got to be a cartoon villain. That's exactly what I'm picturing in my head. It's like, you've got to bring me the money.
The money. It's like the villain from Die Hard, right? It's like,
yeah. Hans Gruber.
So he gives me a small, because it's still, he's like, whatever amount. I think we decided on like 5s. So to make his ego and his dream come true of this, me, a kid, had to go into a bank and say,
yeah,
can you cash this for me, please? You know, my
in
bank,
5s.
in 5s. And I had to ask for some ridiculous denomination, whatever. I forget what it was, but it wasn't hundreds, because that would barely fill up like a to go, you know.
That'd be like you can get like a 10,000 stack. It'd be just 3 of those. It'd be a couple stacks.
It'd be in I'd have to put it in a toiletry bag.
Yeah.
That's it. So I had to break it all out, and he gave me, it wasn't a huge briefcase, but it was like some kind of little case, and he wanted this whole thing acted out where I came into the house. I came into the house wearing sunglasses, and he would be at his desk smoking a cigarette, and I'd be like, do you have the stuff? And he wanted to turn around and like me show him the money. It was like a whole act out thing that he wanted to do. Now, I think that would be funny if it was 2 17-year-olds.
Or 2 adults hanging out and you've been friends since you were 17, or college kid, right. You know, something like there's scenarios where that works.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you're
old dude.
I'm glad you said it. I kind of want to do that, but I got to get it.
I would love to do that. Awesome. I know a couple of friends. I'd be like, "Hey, give me some cash in a briefcase," and they'd be like, "That'd be so cool." Like,
I'll give it right back. I'm gonna give it right back.
Yeah,
yeah. So he shortly after that, and I don't know.
The FBI came.
Yeah. Well, I just sat on it. I was like, okay, this is great. Happy day to me. And so I took the money and I put it as a down payment on a Chevy Blazer. Like the last year, I think it was a 99 Chevy Blazer. And it was a brand new. I mean, no, it wasn't brand new. That's right. It was even a late model. Didn't even get a new car. I should have gotten a new car. But it was like, I was the man around all my friends, you know, because Aaron just graduated from high school and he's got this crazy new tech job, you know. Now he's driving a brand new, Chevy Blazer, just pimping out. So I and my dad was like, "Wow, son, you're doing great." Dude, my truck payment was, this is in the year 2000. I was 18 years old. My truck payment was $400. And my insurance was $299. Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Ass Anger. Appreciate that. And he's like, yeah, you should get that one. What a jerk. So things just fell out. I mean, obviously that was a toxic relationship. You know, it was just not working out at all. I knew I wanted money. That 30 grand that I got and then had to give back, you know, that was great while it was in my fingers, but the deposit's gone, or down payment's gone, and you know, all this money's going to, and I'm not making the sales because he's now not giving me the leads or like opening up and telling him, you know, his account that he had. And so things started getting more contentious. I'm like, yo, I've got to pay for this truck. And it was weird for like a week. And then he turned to me, he goes, "Are you even happy?" And I was like, "Huh?" He's like, "Are you even happy here?" And I was like, "I mean, to tell you the truth, no." "Then why are you here?" I was like, and I just said, I was like, "Deuces." Yeah, that basically deuces. I said, "Okay." And I just walked out. I walked out and I went to my mom had a little restaurant, a little Cuban restaurant, and like a sandwich shop. And I came in, she goes, "Oh, how come you're not at work?" I'm like, I'm not going to be working there. And she was like, "What?" Like she took it more serious. She's like, "Hold on. 1, you're not quitting a job. 2, that's my boyfriend. This is going to be awkward." You know? And you know what all happened. And 3, you have this new truck. And I'm like, "I know, Mom. That's why I got to leave." It ended up working out. because fine until, that loan comes due, and I hadn't received any information. As a matter of fact, I had been filing my taxes and no issues. And I was like, I'd gotten returns back until the Tuesday night before I got married, getting married on a Saturday. Tuesday night, I get home and I get a phone call that I'd missed on my celly. It's my fiance that I will be marrying. And she says, the voicemail, she was freaking out. That's right. I got the voicemail and she said, it's gone. It's all gone. They locked it up. The IRS took it. I don't know what's going on. You need to call. Because we had already had a joint checking account. We had a joint checking account since like for a year after we started dating. I was like, can you just handle, because I was making okay money. And I was like, can you just handle my bills? And she's like, I'd love to. So she would pay all my bills, helped out. So joint checking, we're good to go. All the money we have for the rest of the wedding, for like to pay off the rest of the wedding day of, for the honeymoon, everything, the whole account is locked, because we were super smart and put all of our money in a checking account. And we did that.
Young.
Well, and we did that thinking that, in the next few days, we got to pay all this money out. We're going to be paying all this money out. Locked it all up. I called up, and I remember I called up, and it was like 9:01 when I heard, oh, we close at 9. I was like, oh,
yep.
So the next day I called up, and so that's a Wednesday. I call up Wednesday. What's going? Look, this is everything that's going on. They're like, well, you owe some, amount of money. I forget what the amount was, but it was that money that they were like, that's right. It was a 1099. That's the other thing. It was a 1099. He didn't tell me it was a 1099. He never told me it was and I didn't know what a 1099 was. Didn't even know it. He said I'd be getting forms in the mail. Well, he filed, and he said that he paid me money. And so that's, I guess, what took a while for them to get back to me. And they're like, hey, so yeah, you owe X amount of dollars. I forget what it was, but it was it was a few thousand. And me being, 24 years old. I mean, young, and our account shut down. I'm like, I don't have, what am I going to do here? That was Wednesday. I talked to him. They said the next day, Thursday, come in and see one of our specialists here in the IRS building, like at the actual, which I didn't know that there was, didn't think of an IRS building, but in Tampa, there's an IRS building. And I went there, and there's the sweetest older ladies that were working there. And they were like, well, what happened? And I'm already like energetic and I'm younger. I said, okay, well, hear me out. And I tell them the whole story, somewhat of the story. And I've got her, and people are looking over from their cubicle, like looking in. It's like, what's the story? They're like, that's ridiculous. I was like, I know. And I'm getting married. Oh, you're getting married. I know. So yep. I need this. Oh, and they're like, okay, well, let's work on it. Da, da, da. So I brought all my tax forms. They asked me to bring all my tax forms from that time on. And I sat with her as she went through and processed all of them, reprocessed all. And I felt clear. I was like, look, I know how to do my taxes. My dad, I remember sitting next to my dad when I was a kid, and he had the thin form, the little pamphlet, the newspaper pamphlet. And I knew how to do so I felt comfortable about that. So they came back and they said, okay, well, here's some good news. You've been doing your taxes wrong this time. Oh, good. I don't know how to do it. And they said, we actually owe you more money. I was like, what? They're like, I ended up getting a refund of $1,700. So like, for some reason, I don't know what boxes I wasn't checking, but I wasn't getting any of the money that I was supposed to be getting from the IRS. And they said, they were like, yeah, so all the money, all the back tax that I owed was paid up, and I'd be getting $1,700. And this is Thursday. Cutting it really close before the wedding. I was like, thank you so much. So they're like, we'll release the hold right now on your bank checking account. I was hugging. Everything was great. And I said, then I finally said, right before I was leaving, I was like, so when can I get that check for $1,700?
That's something I'd say too. And thank you for giving me my money back. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
When am I getting my money?
because I was like, because I am going on my honeymoon, and they were like, "Look, you just better be happy that it's back when you get back from honeymoon."
Right?
Like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And they were like,
"That's me right there."
I pushed it. So, yeah. So that's that. That was the whole roundup story of that. That story of that job hit me back years later, 5 years later, 6 years. Yeah, 6 years later. Yay. Oh, wait, no. The topper on the cake. So a few years ago, I was maybe longer than almost 10, maybe 5. Either way, I was back in the area because I forget what, I think I was looking at some property, and I just happened to be back in that area where he lived, and and I was like, you know what? Let me just drive up in, see if he's, this would be fun, because I forgive and forget.
It is what it is.
Yeah. I remember the fun times. I was like, hey, this might be a fun thing. This is 2.5 years of this, or 2 years that I knew this guy, and I knock on the door, and he opens the door, and he goes, yes. And yes. I was like, hey, Werner, what's up? It's Aaron. I go, you remember me, right? Like, you dated my mom? He goes, yeah, I remember. Thank you for stopping by. Please never come back again. And just close the door on me. Yeah, but what was I to expect?
I mean, at least a friendly, hey, how you doing? Niceties.
Niceties, I guess. But this is the guy that wanted me to, that was manipulating a kid, and doing some shady stuff. Tax, that's definitely tax fraud, right? On his part. He paid me as an employer, but then instructed me to give him the money back so he doesn't have to pay taxes on it.
That is tax fraud. The 1099 stuff is a gray area because he just paid you, and you didn't fill out any 10. Like, did he get you to? You have to do a W-9.
I can't remember filling out anything.
Yeah, I mean, if he's doing one shady thing, he's probably filled with shady things. So,
Werner Assinger, filled with shady things.
Just a tagline.
Oh, Kyle, thank you so much, man. Thank you for choosing that quote. That was a fun story I got to tell. And I know that sounds kind of funny. I just complimented my own story. It was a fun story. I had fun telling this story. I had
fun listening to it.
Thank you. I had fun listening to your comments on them. I appreciate them. And I hope everyone out there had fun listening. Kyle, I always like to wrap up and just like, I love how Phil, he's always on it. Like, he gives me the warm and fuzzies. He helps me so much. Let's do a little reflection. I always like to end off with a reflection of your job that you had. What were you able to, the lifelong lesson, if any?
So at that job, I learned what it means to be a leader. And I'll add in that I had another similar situation to where I had made a mistake and accidentally flooded some of our clients' email inboxes. A obscenely amount of emails from our ticketing system, which to me seems like it was too many to have just in general, because there was I know how email processing works, and it was a little too many for my taste. But as soon as I made that mistake, I went to my current supervisor, who's a CEO and president of the company running it basically at the time. And I said, hey, look, this is what I did. This is what happened, in case you get a call. And the first thing out of his mouth was, did you learn something? And I was like, yeah, I need to do more testing before I put something in production and making sure that the script's working. He's like, are you going to make the same mistake again? I said, no. And he's like, cool. And he said, all right, go ahead. That was it. That was the entire situation of the discipline that he had. And that's the type of leader that I want to be. People make mistakes. Everyone has issues. Things are going to happen in a day-to-day life. Screaming and yelling at everybody doesn't change anything. Being calm, assertive, and working to resolve the situation is what you want to do to those that you lead and those that you manage.
Absolutely. Very good. For my reflections, man, it's difficult for me on this one. I mean, I've learned
don't do business with shady people.
Don't do business with shady people is huge. If you write out their characteristics and they are definitely a cartoon villain, maybe
the IRS always gets their money.
That is so true. The IRS.
You don't play with the taxes. They'll come after you.
They will. Ain't that right? Our next guest, Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
Oh, man. You know how much I'm sure Wesley Snipes every day, he's like, will one other famous person please get hit for tax evasion so they can stop talking about me?
Well, you had Jimmy Carr in the UK who didn't pay taxes either.
He didn't?
Famous one. Now but the thing, he's a comedian.
Yeah.
And he's on multiple shows now.
Right.
And they talk about it and he talks about it and they laugh about it constantly. And I think that's the funniest thing is that he blatantly didn't pay taxes and continuously makes fun of himself, and everyone makes fun of him for not paying taxes. And it's just like a thing. And it's fantastic. I can't believe it.
I got to look that up. I didn't know I like him. I didn't know he didn't, that wild, crazy Brit.
Government gets their money.
Government. Oh, yeah. The queen, now the king, yep. They're going to get their, the balloons. What do they have here? Pots of gold. I don't know.
Pounds sterling.
Is it really sterling?
Yeah, pounds sterling is they generally shorten it to pounds or pence if you go smaller. Yeah, it's. I wonder. I know too many UK people.
Well, that sounds kind of messed up. I know too many. I need to cut some of them. I need to drink more coffee and less tea. Right, definitely. Yeah, so I would really think there's a couple times this comes up is not backing down when the figure of authority becomes oppressive, and I think I've had that, a couple times in my jobs and some jobs that I've had in my career that, I didn't, and sometimes that didn't work out for me as well. But I mean, pride to the side, I'm not going to be abused. I'm not, agree to disagree. Exactly. You have to stand up for yourself. And even if it is taking a walk after you got paid $30,000 to give back, I think it was like 28 or something, no, 23, something ridiculous. So make sure it's in a box in fives. Fun times.
I want to see if I can. I'm gonna make that happen.
That's got it. Please put it on LinkedIn. Put it on LinkedIn. A video.
Short, TikTok. Put on TikTok or something. I have to make a TikTok account or YouTube Shorts now since TikTok's getting banned everywhere.
Yeah, TikTok's getting banned everywhere. Twitter's on the way out. Phil said definitely that should be something on next year's MSPGeek.
Ooh, that can be the keynote. Yeah, the MSPGeek Con 2024. Still probably going to be in Orlando in May. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. We're still waiting on some contracts and some discussions. But Martin, if we could have Martin walk out, or Martin be on stage and I'll walk out with a briefcase full of British pounds sterling.
Oh, can we hook it up where you can rappel down, like just somebody?
I'm sure. I only doing one conference. The amount of things I was offered and suggestions made. Yes, really? That could happen. 100%. They will build you a cage.
Oh my God.
Where you can fall down from if you want. Like it is like they'll do anything you want in these giant concerts. As long as you're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, you got to be willing to pay for it. Yeah. How many flamingos do you want? What? None.
Yeah, right. We got them.
We've got
$20 a piece.
We got in the back. They keep them there.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, well, do you want to try this flamingo burger? What? No. Sure. Delish. It's the ribeye of the Caribbean. I don't think they're Caribbean. I think they're African, aren't they?
Flamingo. I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I have to Google that later.
My only knowledge of that is I think I saw them on Lion King. And that's super accurate.
Were those cranes? I think those were cranes. Those might have been cranes.
I need to find me a flamingo. And I expect everyone out there to go find themselves their own flamingo. How long does a flammingo pee? How long does a flamingo pee for?
You're missing some context for that statement.
Okay, no. Okay, so Producer Phil just put in the chat. How long does a flamingo pee for?
So Phil and I, during the pre-show, we're having a nice, lovely conversation about random things we Google, but not on work machines. And I discovered on Reddit today that someone made a statement that animals urinate the same time length as other animals and in us. So you urinate the same time length as an elephant would, which is generally about 20 seconds, according to some Reddit on the internet person.
According to some Reddit.
I said I wanted to Google that later, and then he put that in the chat. And
I command everyone watching and listening to go Google that. To go Google how long does a flamingo pee for? We're gonna get this trending.
Flamingo flax.
Flamingo
facts.
Nice.
You should make that a segment as a second break.
A second break, and I'll just maybe not even to the guests, they won't even know, and I'll just throw out a flamingo fact, and then post production flamingo.
Just completely random. Hey, did you know that a flamingo does this?
Does this? Yeah.
No.
You know that's wild. So you said it was a server? Ugh. Well, did you know a flamingo pees as long as a human does?
No.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
So back to your story. Awesome.
And then they can do it in post, like a little flamingo fact stamp that just comes in. Yeah. Yeah.
Flamingo facts. Done. That's going to be my next tattoo. Flamingo facts. Right around there.
Oh, you should. It'd look great.
I'm sure. All right. Thank you, Kyle, so much for being my guest. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, everyone out there in Computer Lens, for listening or watching. Greatly appreciate it. And we will see y'all next time. Peace.
A broadcast of the MSP Media Network.